everybody, we are back. Boyd, good to see you again.
Man, we haven't done this in a minute.
It's been a long time, but we've been busy.
We've been super busy. ICAST had a bunch of tournaments. We've just been running like crazy, but we owe our audience the opportunity for us to talk about everything like we always do.
I know. It's. I've been missing doing this. We threatened to do it a couple times, and then my schedule or your schedule didn't work. We've made sales calls. We've talked to dealers, been all over the country. Like I said, ICAST, tournaments, and it's finally just to get a chance to get in the office at the same time. So.
It's great to be back.
It is great to be back, yeah. And we've got a great show, great episode this time. The things we just talked about, there's a lot of news in the industry as we kind of come out of the peak of the season. We're going to talk about next year's tournaments and what's coming up. Great new items coming out of ICAST. Everybody introduces new things, so we'll talk about our newest stuff. And just overall, what's going on? Red Crest changes. Which is going to be right here in our hometown a year from now. We're all excited about that, right?
That's a pretty big deal for us right here, Gunnersville-based folks.
It is. Super excited to have that coming here.
Yeah.
What have you been doing the last few months?
Man, I've been running like crazy.
Yeah.
It's been super, super busy. You know my calendar because we were trying to get a half a day to guide one of our good customers in June, and we had to do it on a Sunday.
4th of July Sunday.
Fourth of July.
The weekend of 4th of July Sunday. That's all we had.
As crazy as that sounds, that's the only half a day that I had available that I could do it. So it's been a crazy, massive deal.
That's for sure. Yep. So I'm gonna make it a short entrance for me this time, and I'm gonna pass the torch over to you. And we've got a special guest, right?
We do have a special guest. We're gonna talk a little bit today. We're gonna talk about the Bass Pro Tour schedule.
Yep.
I think that's coming up. We're going to talk about what's all the rage, which is the new sway minnow.
Yep.
We're excited about that. And, of course, it's got the wall hanger brand. Everybody knows that's Jacob Wall.
Yep.
Jacob Wall is in the studio with us today.
I'm excited to hear what he has to say.
On here shortly.
He helped us a lot designing that bait. I got a chance to work with Jacob when we were shooting the video, and he knows all the secrets and why it works and why we built it as a system. So.
Sure.
All right, well, so stay tuned. We're going to jump back into that here in just a minute. We're going to bring Jacob Wall in and let you guys discuss and go through all the details and what makes that thing catch them.
I'm going to learn how to catch them better as soon as I get Wall on this.
Good for you.
Okay, that's what I'm going to learn.
All right, stick with us.
All right, welcome back, guys. I promised you Jacob Wall is coming on the show. Here's Jacob Wall. You probably know him anyway, but man, welcome.
Thanks, Boyd.
First time on our podcast.
First time on this podcast.
I mean, I see you all the time, but not on the podcast.
No.
So be fun. Well, we got some fun stuff to talk about. Going to talk about the BPT schedule a little bit, and you've got to go out there and compete in all of those. So
yeah, it looks like a good schedule. Definitely different than what we've had in the past. We've got three Tennessee River, well actually 4 Tennessee River lakes because you got Chickamauga and Nickajack as part of one.
Yeah.
So technically you've got 4 Tennessee River lakes, which is a lot.
Yeah.
But
you're not mad about that.
No, I like the Tennessee River.
Yeah, Tennessee River.
The Tennessee River's been good to me.
Yeah.
Of course we're based around the Tennessee River here.
That's right. It's pretty easy to hit.
Yeah. No, it's a good schedule. I mean, with stage 1 we go to Conroe. I've never fished Conroe before.
Lake Conroe.
Yeah.
So, of course, I'm out now, so none of this matters to me.
Yeah.
Other than I want you guys to have a good time. But I will say this about Conroe. Love Lake Conroe, and the only Bass Pro Tour event that I almost won was at Conroe.
Really?
We went to Conroe, been 3 or 4 years ago, and with 18 minutes left, I was leading. I had 2 fish on beds that were 1 cast lock fish.
Oh, jeez.
I ran up a creek, and they weren't big, pound-and-a-halfers, but gave me 3 more pounds. I didn't figure anybody could catch me. I'm running up this creek. When I sit down, score tracker update, Edwin Evers caught an 8.6.
Oh.
Edwin, with 18 minutes left, threw a drop shot in the center of a canal and caught an 8.6.
Oh, my gosh.
Of course, Edwin is notorious for stepping up and busting your hiney with a big one anyway towards the end, and I just deflated. I didn't even fish for those. I'd set my trolling motor down, and of course he's getting the pad out, the official, and he's like, "Oh, you're never going to believe this." I didn't want to hear that. As an update.
Yeah.
Caught an 8.6, so I just turned around and ran back out of the creek. There's no point in catching 3 pounds. Anyway, Edwin won it. So I like Conroe, but I fished several of the Texas Toyota Bass Classics there. Conroe's is a big fish lake.
Yep.
Got a lot of big fish in it.
Yep.
You know, we kind of live in a different world now with forward-facing sonar. It's got some standing timber in it that we didn't used to target. It's well known as a boat dock lake, but now with forward-facing and especially being there at the end of January, it's 1:30 to 2:2.
Yep.
I'm thinking that's going to be a lot of timber fishing.
Yeah, I mean, you can't look at the schedule and think that any of them are going to be won without forward-facing sonar. I mean, nowadays.
Yeah, I know it, man.
But, you know, I have a feeling, like you said, I mean, just Texas in general, that time of the year, you're maybe not looking at quite as many numbers, but you've got really good opportunities to catch giant bass.
Yep.
I mean, anytime you go to Texas, you've got the opportunity to, you know, see 10-plus pound fish. Who knows if there'll be one of that caliber caught, but lots of big fish just in general. I'm looking forward to it. You know, I think nowadays with forward-facing sonar, it's really shown me how many fish live off the bank in general.
Man, isn't that the truth?
I mean, and I think that you're going to see the majority of the field at Conroe probably fishing off the bank. You know,
That's probably right.
Probably with
that
the
time of year.
forward-facing sonar.
Well, Conroe, big fish, no doubt. Texas Lakes, big fish. You know, I would predict if we see a double digit, it's probably coming there.
Yeah.
And it's got them. Mm-hmm. Then you guys, leave to go to Harris Chain. Harris Chain's second week of February.
Yep.
Of course, another big fish lake. It's also early in the year.
It is.
Harris Chain will be interesting. Traditionally, we have been there in my career, all the time that I fished. We're normally in and around the spawn.
Yep.
Sometimes post-spawn, hardly ever that early. Like, I've never fished it in February.
I haven't either.
March, April, and May, I fished it. I fished a fall tournament there, but that's early, so.
It is.
What's that going to be like?
I would have to say if you find a hole in the grass on one of those lakes that's got a hard spot or something like that, you could probably catch a pile of them.
Might be the deal.
I mean, I know when I was there, it's been 4 years ago now, I did pretty well on Lake Griffin, and it is probably one of the best lakes on the chain as far as numbers go.
Yep.
And I found this one little spot on that lake in the grass, and it was loaded. I mean, it was a 5-fish tournament, but I think I was catching 70 to 100 fish a day on a lipless and on a vibrating jig.
Oh, wow.
And so if I could find something like that.
Oh, that's golden.
I mean, in this format, that's what you're looking for. Yeah. You know, granted, there were some fish that would have been non-scorables mixed in, but I think you're gonna have a lot of that kind of stuff. Maybe not 100 fish, but you're gonna have a lot of that little spots in the grass. You know, whether it's an isolated clump, or it's a hole, or it's an edge. And then, of course, you know, on actual Lake Harris, you've got like shell bars and brush piles and that kind of stuff. And I would have to think that time of the year, that's probably going to play pretty well, you know, because the fish are still in there. You know, down there, you probably don't really have much of like a winter phase because it's Florida. They don't really ever winter.
No, but but it's above Orlando.
It is.
And you get some lower water temperatures. It's a Florida winter.
Yeah.
You know,
so they're in their winter pattern.
Yep.
So they should still technically be in that very much pre-spawn winter type pattern.
I agree with you.
And so you should find groups of fish if you find them. I think that could be a good event.
Yeah.
Some people have mixed opinions of the Harris Chain. I mean, I personally like it. I've heard some guys tell me that they don't like it at all. Yeah. I've had good success on the Harris Chain, so I'm looking forward to that tournament. I think it's a good location. And once again, I think forward-facing sonar. I mean, I think a lot of these fish are going to get caught like that. But, you know, you've got lots of shallow cover as well. You know, what do you got? Boat docks, you've got lily pads.
Grass lines, lots of boat docks. But I agree, it'll be interesting to see how offshore is approached on the Harris Chain because it is offshore season, so it'll be fun to watch.
Yep.
You know, there's some deep holes.
Yep.
There's some holes with rough spots in them, so that's going to be an interesting one. Then you guys go to Lake Murray next, first week of March. Now that's premium at Murray. Murray's got big ones.
It does.
It's got 7, 8, 9 pounders. Not a lot of double digits, but it's got big ones. And that's right there dead in the pre-spawn when they ought to all be active. That might be a slugfest.
That tournament that one could, I mean, maybe not for like double digit fish or anything like that.
But big ones.
Just the number of big fish.
Above 5 pounders, yeah.
That's going to be a big, that's going to be a big fish tournament. Murray's, I mean, that time of the year, I mean, over the last, I'd say probably 4 or 5 years, I mean, that time of the year and a little earlier, you hear about a lot of like 25 to 30 pound bags getting caught on
You
Murray.
do, man. Yeah.
As many or maybe more than you hear get caught on Guntersville.
Definitely.
I mean, it's a different body of water than the Tennessee River. You're not dealing with ledges. You're not dealing with that kind of stuff. But, you know, I really don't know how guys catch them. But I would assume you're going to have to. I would have to assume that some of it's going to be offshore. Some of it's going to be probably shallow. You know, that time of the year, you know, you get a lot of like lipless, chatterbait, and squarebill, and maybe that kind of stuff. Pre-spawn,
Be fun,
big fat largemouth. I don't really know what the herring do that time of the year. Do you? I guess I can't ask you about Murray, but herring in general.
Right. Herring.
What do herring do in the middle or the beginning of March? I don't know.
They're deep.
Is that
they're still deep? Yeah. That's a deep bait fish. They, you know, we're there a lot in late April, May, first part of June. That's when the herring spawn is up on. But a lot of those herring get deep. That's pretty well known at all the herring lakes.
Yeah. So
then Chickamauga Nickajack Championship. That's the one you pointed out. That's interesting. So it's 2 lakes. That's always fun. That's one of the things Major League Fishing, the way we do it, the smaller fields and all of that. We can go to all these places. But that's a cool twist. Of course, Nickajack, first week of April, you know, pretty dead in the spawn range. So, and Nickajack's got big ones, so you'll see some 10 pluses that guys will catch off of beds and things like that. But then Nickajack, you know, not everybody, you're not that far from it, and you might not want to share a whole lot of it because, you know, we got other Bass Pro Tour anglers, but I know you know about Nickajack.
I've never fished Nickajack.
Never fished Nickajack. 25 miles up the road, dude.
I have driven by that lake a lot.
Yeah.
And every time I drive by it, I'm like, man, I need to go fish that lake.
Yeah, man.
And that's as far as I've gotten with Nickajack is driving by it going, man, I need to fish that lake. That's as far as I've gotten. I have said 100 times I need to go to Nickajack. And now I'm kicking myself for not because it's on the schedule.
It is on the schedule.
I see that name and I'm like, gosh dang it, Jacob, you've had 6 years of opportunities to stop at that lake and you've never done it. So,
it's not far. You'll get to go up there and pre-practice.
Yeah, I'll ride up there and look around. I think from my just overall knowledge of the Nickajack and the Tennessee River, I mean, obviously, talked to a lot of people. From what I've understood in the past, Nickajack's more of a river system. It's got like some attributes of like, you know, the Tennessee River lakes, but from what I understand,
mostly
it's more of just like a river.
Chunk of the river.
Yeah.
It's a good lake, though. I've been up there a fair amount. I can't talk to you about it, but it's going to be a fun event.
Yeah.
Nickajack's a good lake.
Yeah.
A lot of bites.
Yeah, I've heard that it's kind of a little bit of a hidden gem on the Tennessee River. You know, of course, it's between Chickamauga and Guntersville.
Yeah.
Which, I mean...
So why would you stop at Nickajack?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
If you lived anywhere else in the country, you'd go to Nickajack.
Yeah.
We have Guntersville and Chick. So.
But I mean, you look at Guntersville, and historically over the last, 3 or 4 years, it's been just astounding the amount of weights, big weights that have come out of it. Big fish, I mean, throughout the whole year. It's not just, that's the crazy part about Guntersville. It's not just like in the spring. It's 12 months out of the year, you're seeing 25-pound bags win all year long. And then Chick, it maybe is not quite on as high of a trend as Guntersville is right now, but I mean, within the last 5 years, I don't know how many 10-plus pounders have gotten caught out of there.
And that's the Florida strain. That's TWRA.
Yeah.
Keeping the last report I read was a 27 to 29% Florida strain average in the fish. So they keep that Florida strain average. They cross spawn, obviously, but they average fish somewhere almost approaching 30%.
Wow.
Florida strain, which that's where the big ones come from.
Yep.
Guntersville, straight northerns.
Okay.
So we don't have Florida strain here.
Yeah.
So our fish won't get as big as those, but Guntersville is special because of the volume.
Yeah.
Just the number of fish that's in here.
Yep.
Then moving on, Kentucky Lake, June the 5th. Haven't been to Kentucky Lake in a while. Have you fished Kentucky Lake in the past?
I have not fished Kentucky Lake. Another one of the Tennessee River lakes I've never fished, but you know, it was interesting. We had just gotten done. I did the high school fishing camp, Major League Fishing. It's actually the shirt that I'm wearing.
Oh yeah, awesome.
Up there
up
on,
at Benton.
And we were right there by Kentucky Lake at Ken Lake State Park.
Yep.
And talking to a lot of those kids, and I actually did the course with Brandon Hunter, who he lives up there near Kentucky Lake and guides up there. And we do an electronics course. The last 2 years we've done an electronics course.
Yeah.
And so this was before the schedule was released or anything. We're sitting there, and I was asking him about Kentucky Lake and picking his brain a little bit because I don't know anything about it. And we're sitting there chatting, and then come to find out it's on the schedule. So,
Hey, you got,
not that I got any secret information, but
you got something.
it sounds to me, based on what I've kind of heard watching the Invitational this year, early in the year, lots of smallmouth in Kentucky Lake. Sort of what Brandon was talking about was that it seemed to, like, from what he was saying, that a lot of the fish are starting to get back into like going out deep on ledges. It's in June. I mean, that's prime ledge season. Yeah. I am most excited about Kentucky Lake on the schedule. If I had to pick one lake on the schedule that is the most exciting one for me personally, it's that one. I've grown to absolutely love ledge fishing. I mean, living here for 6 years now, I mean, if I could put my boat in the water and never cast to a blade of grass, I'd be a happy man. I'm fine with it. I'd rather cast at shells.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to Kentucky Lake. Should be a really good offshore tournament. Weights could be really good. It's a big lake, so I think that the size field we're going to have is going to probably fish pretty good on that lake. I don't think you're going to be, I'm sure you're going to be competing for locations. That's how it always is when you fish offshore. But 65 guys, not having Group A and Group B, I think you're going to be able to actually see what's getting pressure. The spots aren't going to be as beat up for the knockout round and then the championship round. I think that could be a phenomenal tournament. I really do. I think Kentucky Lake's on the rebound. That's what I got to say about it. I'm excited about that one for sure.
For the first time.
Yeah.
So a little bit of history on Kentucky Lake. So prior to the invasion of the Asian carp, the damage caused to Kentucky Lake, because Kentucky Lake is one of the most storied. It is the ledge fishing lake in America. I mean, we have good, a lot of Tennessee River impoundments have it, and other places as well for ledge fishing, but it is famous for how good it used to be. Then with the invasion of the Asian carp, so many came into Kentucky Lake, they caught and they reproduced when they got into the Tennessee River. And they had a lot of good things happening, the right current, the right water temperatures. Mother Nature seems to be managing that. As crazy as that sounds, because Asian carp, I mean, that was the biggest deal there was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But it is, the Asian carp population is dropping. The, bass are resilient creatures.
They are.
They can live anywhere. They find a way to, they're like a cockroach.
They are.
I mean, they really are, man. A bass can live every place.
Yeah.
And find a way to survive, and they have done that, so they have started to bloom again. And that was kind of special for us, too. On the, our corporate office is Benton, Kentucky, the old FLW headquarters, now corporate office for all of Major League Fishing, right there by Kentucky Lake. And so it's kind of special for us, too, to get to, that's kind of a home lake, so to speak, for the league.
It is.
And it hasn't got much exposure lately because, quite honestly, it was really bad for a long time.
Yeah.
And but they're coming back. So I'm excited to see, to be able to hold an event on a lake that has, that's such a storied fishery.
Yeah.
I can sit here for hours and tell you how good. I will tell you one real quick, as long as we're on it, because it's a podcast. We can talk about it wherever the hell we want to, right?
Sure. Yeah. Well, tell me. I want to hear. So
I fished one of the Joe Thomas's, that belt, ultimate match fishing belt. I won on Kentucky Lake, and believe it or not, after, and you know how that deal goes, you go through all these, you go to different lakes, qualifiers, I think we're at Lanier and all, and anyway, we go through the whole system of all of us competing head to head, and we end up at Kentucky Lake in the championship, and it ends up 2 guys head to head. My competitor was Kelly Jordan, my roommate, of all people in the world. Yeah. And so Kelly and I go in, and I had a school of fish, and this was pre-forward facing. So, a little bit different when you found them, and they were better because everybody couldn't find them back in the old days. But I had a ditch that I had saved through my competition days, and in this particular event, and Joe Thomas did a wonderful job. That was so much fun to fish every time. Every chance I had to fish that was special. And this thing was so full of fish when I drove it. It looked like a shad school in a ditch. You know how shad will black your screen out? Yeah. And it was all largemouth.
Oh, wow.
And I never went to it. I didn't use it. And I'm way behind Kelly. And Kelly, in fact, in that tournament, the big spoon, which was only 5 inches back then, but that Lake Fork tackle, big spoon that Kelly Jordan put on the map. That's the first time that anybody really saw him fishing with that. So there was a happy hour on championship day. Joe Thomas always had a twist.
Okay.
You know, something fun. You know, you fished out of, you know, something goofy. You know, that on championship day. So in this one, in that morning, they announced the twist would be happy hour, because you always fish together out of the same boat. You know, you got the line in the middle of it. But you got a boat and I got a boat for 1 hour is all we had. So I saved that school of fish for my 1 hour. So at the end of that, there's 4 periods. End of the 4th period, Kelly goes to a little drop down by Blood River with that spoon. I'd never seen a spoon that. We didn't throw big spoons before him. He catches 5 that weigh 23 something.
Nice.
On a big spoon, and I got like, I don't know, whatever I got, 11 pounds, 12 pounds in the box, and I'm counting on this school of fish. So we go back to the back of Big Sandy, went out of Buck County's resort, and this 1 hour includes run time to and from the dock, so in a hell of a lot of time. With this ditch is in this little ditch in Big Sandy Creek. I run into this ditch, and I'm like, this thing better be on. I saved them all week. I saved them for this deal. Including run time, I boated 46 fish during my 1 happy hour, and I beat Kelly.
Wow.
In that event, won that belt.
That's
I caught them you hear this story, right? Catching them every cast. Well, you don't really catch bass every cast. You might catch 5.
Yeah.
Right? I caught them every cast. I caught 2 at a time. I was throwing a 3/4 fat-free shad crankbait, real popular at the time.
Yeah.
And I would hook 1,
Bomber.
and then bomber, and then it would get heavier, and it'd be 2. And I caught them every cast, and we were there in like middle of June.
Yeah.
And I am exhausted. You catch that many in a row and hop around and culling the whole time and catch them. I had to stop, sit down, drink water. I caught 46 fish logged.
In an hour.
Including run time.
Yeah.
So probably in 50 minutes.
That's as quick as you can cast out your reel.
If it wasn't for 2 at a time on the same crankbait, I could have never got there.
Yeah.
It was crazy. The schools at Kentucky Lake in the old days, dude, were crazy.
Wow.
Crazy good. But that's the best one I've ever been on.
That sounds pretty fun. Hopefully it's like that for 1 week.
Well, I don't think it's that good again, but you'll sure enjoy going. Stage 6, we'll go to Potomac River. Been to Potomac?
Yeah, I fished the Potomac 3 years ago when Jacopo Galelli won.
Oh, yeah.
When he won on a chatterbait, fishing some offshore grass somewhere. Yeah. I'm not exactly sure where, but Potomac tidal fishery. We fished one true tidal fishery this year so far. Yep. And I guess that's the only one. We're not fishing. St. Lawrence isn't tidal, but Chowan was also kind of tidal. So another one on the schedule for next year. I've had a lot of success on tidal fisheries. Every one that I've fished throughout my career on the East Coast, I've made money. I haven't fished a single tidal event on the East Coast and not cut a check. So if that stays true, I mean, there's a check on the schedule again for me. So I'm looking forward to the Potomac. It's definitely not. I'm not as excited about it as I was the James River. The Potomac's more of like a grass fishery, you know, and I think it's a little bit more difficult to find that needle in a haystack because it is that grass fishery. You know, I really don't know what to expect. I think the Potomac's got a pretty good population of fish in it, a lot of like 2 to 3 pound fish in it, so it should be good for our format. I would assume we're probably going to do 1.5 pounds minimum there, maybe 2 pounds.
Yep, don't know yet.
Should be a ton of fish caught though, ton of scoreable fish. Just like the James though, the Potomac's windows of opportunities. You know, it's like
tidal.
You got those small windows where you can smash them, and then it's like right as you figure them out and you start catching them, it seems like your bite's gone.
Yeah, bite's gone.
So it should be a fun tournament. It's definitely going to be another strategic type of event. Yeah. I feel like those tidal fisheries, they over the last 6 years of my career doing this, I've realized that I'm more strategic for the tidal fisheries than any other tournaments, because you have to like really think about timing and like when you caught them in certain areas and how that water level was, and you really have to plan out your day accordingly to how you found success. If you try not to pay attention to it, you're almost always going to get kind of screwed, because you'll miss you'll be like, oh shoot, like that timing, I was like an hour earlier yesterday, and oh man, like it was a little lower. So you really need to pay attention to those things, and that's going to be one of those tournaments where like, it's all about timing. Got to hit the right little patches, the right little spots, and get right in a hurry, and then it might dwindle out, and you got to reevaluate and change your approach to the next spot.
Boy, all of that is correct. You said something I want to slightly off schedule from the Bass Pro Tour schedule, but what's funny, and you just went through this, and I remember I experienced this too when I was coming into my pro career and getting out there and pretty new at it. Isn't it funny how you cannot, you're a West Coast guy, you moved to Alabama, you're not a tidal guy, like, your history.
Fished the Delta a little bit, but it was only for big tournaments.
Not your bread and butter.
No, I didn't grow up on the Delta. You got those guys on the West Coast, like Delta rats.
Yeah, Delta rats.
I'm not a Delta rat.
Yeah,
I fished the Delta, but...
Yeah. Well, but what's funny is how certain fisheries are good to you in your career. Now, I can tell you, and it shouldn't even fit you. So growing up in North Carolina, lived in Tennessee for a long time, moved to Alabama, and I fished primarily in the South, and it wasn't until I started fishing professional events, I went north. Yeah. I knew nothing about smallmouth fishing. I mean, I really knew very little about smallmouth fishing. Every event I went north, I had good events. I got a check every place I went. I had never had any trouble catching smallmouth from my very first trip. That's a 7-pounder that came out of Lake Erie in an Elite Series event. You were talking about it.
Yeah.
And isn't that crazy how it's just, and there were certain lakes like Oneida, which I won on, but I had several top 10s on Oneida, and I don't know anything about Oneida. I showed up and just caught them.
Yeah.
And your confidence, I don't know what it is. Like you're just saying, you're looking forward to Potomac, and it's just, I don't know if it's a confidence level or you just naturally get good at that. Some guys cranking tournaments, flipping tournaments, whatever it is, they didn't grow up doing it. Like I know guys on Florida events, and Florida's another whole country.
Oh yeah.
True Florida fishing with Florida strain.
Oh yeah.
It's another fish.
Totally.
I mean, they don't act anything like the rest of the country. I know guys from the north and from, that didn't grow up around that were able to get in the groove and understand the Florida bass and their tendencies, because they're so much different, that always did well, always got checks, and you're like, why is he catching them? And why is a guy from Michigan killing us in Florida? And then there's other guys, me as an example, I always struggled in Florida. Like, during my full-time pro career, if you look back on them, my Floridas are, 87th and 61st, and
well, I'll tell you why the guy from Michigan was doing it, because his name was Kevin Van Dam.
Well, not counting him. Yeah, not counting that one guy.
That's why he was kicking your butt.
That's why he catched me everywhere. Yeah, you're right about that. Didn't take him long. Anyway, back on track. So, Stage 7, Saginaw Bay. We were there last year and the year before.
Yeah.
Year before. Yeah.
No, it was last year.
No, last year.
Yeah, it was our last event. Same deal. Our last event from last year is now going to be our last event from this coming year.
Yeah, that's coming year. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so
did you have a good event there? I can't remember.
I was riding the edge of making Red Crest at that event, and I had a decent day one, and kept myself, I needed to make the knockout round.
Yep.
And if I made the knockout round, I probably would have given myself the opportunity to climb a couple more spots. Usually, like how we used to do it with top 20s in the knockout round, like you'd have guys that would go into it having a good day or good 2 days, and then you'd have, so anyway, I needed to make the knockout round, and on the second day, I dropped the ball and missed it. And so I was in I think I ended up 46 in the points. So that event was kind of my thorn in my side, but that's how it always kind of goes. You look at the season and you go, man, if I would have caught them on that last day. Well, the problem is if you would have caught them a little bit better in every event, it wouldn't have, so that one, it wasn't a strong finish for me last year, but neat fishery. I went up there and pre-practiced before that tournament, and so I've got a few days on the water out there. What a massive body of water. I mean, absolutely massive body of water.
Big water.
I mean, you get out in the middle of that bay and you can't see the shoreline all the way around you.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't want to be out in the middle of that bay if the wind starts to blow.
No, that can be a rough
I mean, it gets big out there in a hurry. But it's got big smallmouth in it, but I think for the every fish counts format, it's going to be dominated by largemouth.
Yeah.
You know, lots of shallow flipping. That'll be a fun one because you're probably not going to see much forward-facing sonar.
No, you're right about that, because I don't think smallmouth will play like it did that like with a 5-fish limit.
Yeah, 5 fish they really played because your average size, you know, you're catching 3.5 to 5 pounders.
Yep.
Whereas that sounds great in every fish, but you can only catch 6 or 7 of them a day.
Yeah, or 5
if you're on them.
Yeah, if you're on them, 5 bites.
Yeah,
a lot of guys had 2 or 3.
That's the thing. So
That's exactly
if you're on them. Largemouth, you might go catch 20.
That's right.
So that's going to be the deal. Largemouth, you know, vibrating jig, flipping, bunch of that kind of stuff. So but overall, I think it's a good schedule. You know, I have guys ask me, they're like, what do you rate the schedule 1 to 10? What are you most excited about? Man, I'll be honest, I'm most excited about Kentucky Lake. As far as rating the schedule goes, I don't know. I never really read too much into what the names of the lakes are on the schedule. To me, it doesn't matter where we go.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter where we go. I could care less what the schedule really is. I'm just going to go out there and catch them regardless of where we go. And,
that's it.
You know, looking forward to another season on the BPT. I'm in good position to make it again next year. I think I can pretty much say that I'm going to be in next year.
Oh, yeah. You're in good shape.
Great positioning to make Redcrest, which is on Guntersville. That I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
Coming into this year, I was like, man, I don't care really what I do except I have to make the Redcrest. I have to make Redcrest. It's on Guntersville. Yeah. I have to make Redcrest.
Yeah.
The rest of the year, whatever happens, happens. I have to make Redcrest.
Well, that's the 2025 BPT schedule. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back. Give us just a minute.
In the fast-changing world of forward-facing sonar techniques, many lures fail to match the innovation of the technology. Until now. Introducing the Sway Minnow and Sway Head from Duckett Fishing, a true system approach to targeting suspended fish you locate on forward-facing sonar. While they work great individually, they are designed to work together, providing a simple yet effective swaying roll that entices pressured fish to bite. The sway system is designed to automatically induce action with a light twitch of your rod. The repositioned jig head's high center of gravity causes a side-to-side rocking and swaying action that single fish can't resist and roving schools compete to eat. Part of our forward-thinking line, tested and designed by Duckett Pro Jacob Wall, these baits are proven effective and help you catch more fish. The Sway Minnow and Jig Head system makes anglers using this technique more productive and helps beginners become effective faster. Duckett Fishing, bringing pro-driven innovation to anglers who compete against the best or just themselves.
All right, welcome back. Looks like the next topic, and on these topics, we don't really follow topics good, but Tyler,
we're bad at it.
We're bad at that. Tyler does a great job, though, giving us a nice thing to go through. So I am going to follow what he's got next, which is what's new with Duckett Fishing.
Yep.
Just coming off of ICAST, and what's new with Duckett Fishing? It's probably what's new with everybody. It's forward-facing sonar. Hey, I said in the very first podcast, I don't know how long it's going to be before we don't talk about forward-facing sonar. Probably never, okay?
Yeah.
But we sure have worked hard in the forward-facing sonar business, working hand in hand with you. Obviously proud to have you on the pro staff. Huge asset. One of the things that I enjoy working with you so much about is your interest, beyond advertising and sponsorship, but your interest in products and product development.
Yeah.
Because quite honestly, that's my motivation to even have the company. I mean, I got as you well, I got all kind of stuff to do, but this is the fun spot for me.
Sure.
And I always have a good time working on this stuff. So your personality and wanting to get it right and create something new and perfected and always out there looking, from, like the different swim bait designs that we've talked about, obviously forward-facing things, the glide bait that you're working about.
Yep.
All of that is, to me, that's the fun part of getting a chance to do all this. So we certainly want to talk about, which we talked about a lot at brand new product for us, our Sway Minnow.
Yeah.
And we have hit the ground running. I think we're finally getting production finished and packaged, I want to say, beginning of this week.
Yep.
We've already pre-sold like 23,000 packages.
So the end of July, we're pretty much having it on schedule for the end of July here. Yeah.
That's right. Well, we've got product coming. Yeah, that's right. Coming in, and we're starting to ship and fill some of those orders right now. But this is something that was integral with you. This and obviously the sway head, which is a matching system.
It is
really designed to work together. So it's all about you, buddy.
Man,
tell the folks what this means.
This is really cool for me. First things that I was able to kind of work with Duckett on was these 3 rods up here. These are my Pro Series rods. They're part of the Pro Series, but they're my 3 models. And it's as I use them, I find more and more applications for these rods. Recently, that 7'4" heavy. I've been, maybe you've thrown it, I hadn't thrown it much. Have you thrown a free rig? It's where you slide that, it's almost like the drop shot weight that you slide on your line. Mm-hmm. You Texas rig on it. And it's kind of like if you're throwing a unpegged Texas rig. Mm-hmm. If you just slide on like a 1/2 ounce weight, tie on your hook and just put a worm on there. That's kind of what a free rig is. Mm-hmm. But I've been messing around with a free rig with a 10-inch worm and like a 1/2 ounce weight, throwing it where I'd throw a shaky head offshore. Mm-hmm. And that rod's really, really good for it. Perfect for it. You can reel down and jack them. Yeah. It's good for that big shaky head offshore, good for a big football jig. The other series, just really happy to have 3 rods that I put a lot of time and energy into, and they're 3 rods that I can do a lot of different things on. Yeah. But this is something we've been working on for a very, very long time. This is the first bait that I've had the help in designing, and the Sway Minnow it's a really, really, really effective bait. First of all, the size that we went with, it's like a 4.5 inch size, so it's going to mimic your average size thread fin. Your smaller size, just any bait fish, mimics that blueback herring size really well. So many bait fish are that 4.5, 5 inch size, mm-hmm. and that's a size bait fish that so many bass they're going after. With the actual bait itself, there's so much thought that goes into it. It looks just like a piece of plastic from a distance.
Yeah, they're different. They're all different. They're all different.
It just looks like a little fluke, really. Mm-hmm. Is all it kind of looks like. The biggest difference, here is it's a solid body. A fluke was more designed to be a Texas rig style bait. It's got the slit in the belly, so it can be Texas rigged. That's not something that we were really going for with this. We wanted it to be rigged on a jig head, so we're a solid body, rigs up really nicely. It's a little bit more durable because of that. It doesn't have that thin piece of plastic that you got to rig through where that slit kind of is. It just the whole thing with this minnow on a jig head is that rolling action. I have no idea why. Maybe you could tell me why they like that. Well, the bass love that.
Bass love that. So, and you and I've talked a little bit about that. So way back when hollow belly style swim, when the bass tricks hit the market, this is 15 years ago or something, or maybe a little further back. So when that became popular, everybody came with a hollow belly design with a paddle tail.
Sure.
And some of them caught fish and some of them didn't. And so when that came out, I was trying to figure out why, because some of them looked really good.
Sure.
And I realized that the swimming paddle tail had the least to do with it. You could cut it off. And the bass tricks, and then shortly thereafter, actually Pure Fish Berkeley came out with one they called the hollow belly.
Yep.
And it was designed with a real sharp belly.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, and we were just swimming them back then. We didn't shake them or anything.
Yep.
But both of those baits would rock. A lot of them just came through and you just had a tail.
Yep.
And a bass would eat it. okay?
Sure.
Nothing like the rocking motion. So years ago, I learned that in any kind of a topwater bait, even a jerk bait, tight running crankbaits, they do move. But like, here's a great example. A square bill is very different than a shad rap.
Yep.
It's hard to catch a fish in open water on a square bill.
Sure.
If it's not bumping into something, it's because it doesn't do that. I think, because this goes from swim baits to hard baits, and now you're talking about, shaking a minnow, normally on forward facing.
Yep.
And even a shad rap, if you watch it, it's the only crankbait that rocks. And you can throw it in open water at 100 feet of water, and they'll chase it. And it's just special because of that.
Sure.
So I think that's what you're doing, is you've reproduced what worked in a hollow belly paddle tail style swim bait. And now you're taking that over
And bringing it into something like this.
And bringing it into something. Now it requires, and I want you to talk a little bit to everyone about the technique, because it requires work to make it do what it does.
It does. Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know what it is about that. I don't know if it's the ever since I was little, obviously, I'm really involved in bass fishing. Always wanted to watch things, learn stuff as much as I could. Tactical Bassin', they've been around forever. Matt Allen and Tim Little, I watched their YouTube videos since I was like 13, 14 years old.
Yeah.
And there's different points that they hit on. And I'm sure they make up a lot of the terminology. But, primary and secondary action, that's something that you don't really hear a lot of people talk about. That's something that I think that they talked about years ago, primary and secondary action. And I really think that is part of the reason why they bite that rocking. It's a secondary action is what it is. Like when you were, obviously that was what we were focusing on, designing the bait, but I don't think that was what was supposed to be. Like that, when the minnow first kind of got introduced, it wasn't like guys were shaking the minnow just to give it some bobbing.
Yeah, life.
Like just to kind of make it like bob and make that tail kind of quiver. But then guys started realizing that, hey, every once in a while this bait was going to try to fall over, and then it kind of rights itself and it would impart that rocking. So then what we did was we were like, we want to focus on that because that's what the fish are biting. That's what they like. How do we make that more, like how do we get that to where it's going to be consistent? How do we replicate that to where it's a consistent thing? And between the bait and the jig head that we designed, the jig head, we've got the weight lifted up on the shank of the eye to enhance that rolling action. So if you imagine like the center point of that bait, it goes all the way through the bait, from the tip of the nose to the very tip of the tail. Most jig heads, when you rig them up there, that weight is centered up to the nose of the bait. So you imagine all the weight is very centered. Our jig head, a lot of that weight's above the actual center point of the bait, which in turn, just the physics of it, it wants to like make that bait fall upside down. It wants to keel it upside down, which it's not going to naturally do that when you're shaking, when you keep it tight.
I got to show this to the audience.
It's not going to naturally do that when you're keeping it tight. It's going to want to right itself. So essentially our minnow and head design, it's going to force that bait to fall, then recorrect itself, then fall, then recorrect itself, inhibiting that rolling action. And so we just kind of focused on that secondary action and maybe made that more of our primary action because that's what they really like. But like, I'd say your primary action is just the bait moving through the water column, in the middle of the water column, just kind of hovering or floating, so to speak. Our wing design on there is going to help that bait stay nice and flat and true in the water, not just when you're working it, but when it's falling, it's not going to spiral and do a bunch of crazy stuff.
It stays real flat.
Stays real true and flat. But then that head, in pair with that flat side of that bait, it really helps that thing roll. Man, it's such an effective technique. Forward-facing sonar has taken over, and anywhere that you've got offshore fish that are relating to hard bottom. Here on Guntersville, we're doing a lot over shell bars, doing a lot over stumps, doing it a lot on, various pieces of cover, whether it's a shell bar, a stump, a brush pile. You can do it down a bridge piling, whatever it might be. But man, I really don't know why they bite that thing. I guess just because it just looks like a bait fish. But
well, one of the things
they bite the heck out of this thing. And this is, it's got to be one of the. The whole system is just phenomenal. I'm really proud to have helped design this thing.
Well, I guarantee you one thing that is a fact, and I can tell you from all the years of being in and around baits. I started traveling tournament fishing in 1977. I've seen a lot of baits come and go, and some catch them and some don't catch them.
Yeah.
For an angler, we all want to figure out why.
Yep.
But you don't always get to know why.
Yeah.
And really, you don't have to know why.
No.
You just need to know they do.
Yep.
And learn to accept the fact that they're all different.
Sure.
A plastic worm. You know how many plastic worms are on the market?
Oh.
I won't even know how to guess.
Hundreds.
Hundreds.
Hundreds and hundreds.
There are a handful of plastic worms that are way better than others. Whether it's profile, design, the effect, and I'm not sure that we can give the answer.
Yep.
But if you want to become a better angler, just learn that.
Yep.
You don't even have to know why.
Yep.
Just have the stuff that works, whether it's crankbait, stopwater, whatever you're dealing with. And there's go look at a pro's boats. We got 4 crankbaits that most people would throw away.
Sure.
That's because they catch them.
Yeah.
Catch them.
Yeah.
And those are the tournament baits. Those are the ones that you pay attention to. But yeah, this is so exciting and it's fun. And I tell you, it's I've watched in the past 4 years the evolution of forward facing. We all think it's new. It's 6 years old, but for me, because I didn't jump on it 6 years ago, about 4 years for me.
Sure.
And I remember I could take a fluke bait or almost any bait when I first started throwing at fish, and I could get them to come eat it.
Yeah.
Then I noticed that they would come up and look and not, probably because 9 guys fished the same stump I did maybe before I got there or whatever. But I have noticed a quick, distinct change in open water fish.
Yep.
Bass bait train, guys. Bass bait train. The Alabama rig caught every fish it got close to for a short time period. Mm-hmm. And there hadn't been a tournament won on Guntersville that I'm aware of this year on an Alabama rig.
No.
They don't. So, and if you'd have said that 8 years ago, you thought it was going to catch every bass that ever existed. They bait train quick.
Yeah.
So taking the technique from, originally here's this bass out here and he sees a fluke moving around for the first time, or any bait you put on the back of it, they would hit it and eat it. Then I started noticing they come up and look way more often than they come up and eat.
Sure.
So now we're down to what do you do to what you just described.
Yep.
To figure out how to make that bait not have that image fall off.
Yep.
But have it go eat it.
Connect to it. Yeah.
That's where we are now. We evolved to the point now
Yep.
where we have to have a system, and you have to understand the technique, and you have to look and make those adjustments so
Yep.
that you get bites and not just have a good time looking at them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Just like sight fishing, you could throw at fish, and if you don't, if not everything's right, the fish might look at your bait, but
Never eat
never eat it. It's the same thing. We're just sight fishing with electronics. This technique, you asked me earlier to explain sort of how to get the bait to roll. Mm-hmm. A lot of it comes down to, it's the key with this technique from what I've seen is that you have to you're always in connection with your bait. So there's never a time where you're disconnected. So what I mean by that is you throw a jig out there, for example, and you slack line it to get it to the bottom. I would say you're completely disconnected from that jig at that point. Sure, you can watch your line kind of uncurl and tighten up as the jig sinks to the bottom, but your connection to that bait is pretty well gone. You don't know if a fish bumped it on the way down. Mm-hmm. So, it may stop early and you're like, hey, that's a lot deeper than that, and you set the hook. But your connection to the bait isn't straight line to the bait. You don't know exactly, when my bait and my line is tight, you know, on my rod, I'm connected. I know what's happening. I feel if it's over a rock. I feel if it's, you know, floating in the middle of the water columns. You start to get really in tune with what your bait's doing, just being like connected, you know, tight. And this jig, you know, jig head and minnow, you are constantly in connection with it, but it's a light connection. Like, it's like you have to be very, very subtle with how you're connected to it. It's not, there's not a lot of, you know, a lot of times, you know, this is a 1/4 ounce head here. We've got this from an 1/8 all the way up to a 3/8. You know, a lot of the times, the lighter you can get away with, the better. And the lighter you go, the less you have to, the less it feels like you're actually connected to anything. Like, if you weren't watching it on the screen and you cast it out there, it feels like nothing's there.
Yeah, nothing's
like
happening.
It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right. Like, it doesn't feel natural. But you start to get used to that feeling, you know, throwing a bait with no resistance. You know, this bait has little to no resistance at all. I mean, just the weight of the jig head is your only resistance on your line, really. There's no tail grabbing water. There's nothing holding you back. It'd be like throwing a straight, you know, Texas string stickworm, reeling it in. It feels like you're just reeling in nothing, you know?
Yeah.
And that's how this feels. But you start to get in tune with your electronics and you realize, like, hey, there's a lot more going on down there than what it feels like. Because so long in bass fishing, we just go off of what the feel is. You know, oh, it feels like it's going over a rock right now. Oh, it feels like this. This doesn't have much of a feeling. Your feeling becomes that very subtle nature of like what it's doing. You get used to, you almost want to just bring it by the side of the boat and watch it. And the key is, like, there's different speeds that work well. I've seen it to where, like, you know, you have to shake it kind of quick, you know, like shake your rod quick and keep it going, kind of pull it away from the fish. But the key is that subtle shake. You know, essentially you're just trying to get that jig head to like fall over, and then you're righting itself, getting it to do that natural rolling motion. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel like much at all. I mean, that's why that forward-facing sonar is so key, because you can watch it, you see it shaking, you see it, you know, kind of doing its thing, you can keep it above the fish. Less is more with this technique, and the key with it is keeping it above their head, imparting little bitty shakes with your rod, but you don't want to do it while reeling fast. It's all real subtle, real natural. You're trying to just mimic a little minnow just hovering over their head. You know?
Yeah. I'd tell you one of the things that I did when I was trying to figure that out, because just what he said is right, especially if you go down to an 1/8 or a 3/16, you just have no idea what's going on out there.
No, you feel lost.
So get in a clear lake, get in a swimming pool, and look at what you're doing first. Because if you're just going to go out there and throw it and you've never seen it before, you're not going to know if you're moving at a foot or a 1/4 of an inch.
Yep.
Go look at it. That's what I ended up doing. I've got a swimming pool, so I was able to. But I went to my pool and I watched it, and I was like, you know, God, man, I've been killing. You know, I wasn't doing that, but my bait's doing that.
Yeah.
Because it's so light, and so then I learned how to almost shake a limp line.
Yep.
Yeah. No,
That's what I mean. Like, your
limp. Yeah, the
connection
line is almost limp, but that bait is working.
and you're in feel of it. Like, you know it's there, but it's not like you're not like dragging bottom where it's like ka-tunk, 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 and your rod's doing this. It's like, I mean, you're sitting there and it's like you said, it's so subtle. And that's the key to this technique, is how like finessey and subtle and just, I don't know, it just floats through the water.
And less is better is a good technique too. All right, we're gonna have to take another short break.
Yep.
Stick around. I think Chris is gonna come in and spend some time with you.
Cool.
Always a pleasure. I think I'm out for this episode, so I'll see you on the next one. Guys, appreciate you joining the Duckett Exchange.
Hey, well, we're back. I wasn't sure if you guys were going to let me back in the room for a while, Jacob. You and Boyd were having such a good time. I overheard you guys just talking about fishing and techniques and how to shake these minnows, and I didn't know if you were ever going to quit.
Yeah, I mean, we had to cover all of the bases. I mean, we had to talk about the whole schedule.
Right.
That took a minute. I mean, talking about 7 different lakes, and actually 8 because of Red Crest.
Sure, right.
That's a lot to talk about.
Yep.
And we talked about the minnow. We pretty much focused on like working the bait and sort of the idea behind the design of like how to get it to do what we wanted it to do in the water.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, this, you know, our next little deal here, I mean, we're going to talk about sort of the design process a little bit, and working with Sean and the team on this, working with you too, Chris. I mean, it's been a lot of fun, you know.
Yeah,
I mean, ultimately, like, I wanted to design a product that was going to be effective, that was going to do what we wanted it to do. You know, this technique is going nowhere in the industry as long as forward-facing sonar is still getting utilized. So it's been a lot of fun, you know, being able to just come down the road to the office here and go through, no, this weight needs to be up here, or this bait isn't the right, you know, feeling. I don't like this plastic. You know, we went through a lot of different processes, it's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it, the whole process.
It's really nice, you know, for all of us that Lake Guntersville is 30 seconds or 2 minutes from our office front door, and that you're 10 minutes away.
Yep.
So we were able to collaborate easily, you know, when people are living a different time zone, or, you know, the factory is on a different time schedule, or the pros are out long distance away. It's one thing to send pictures or to talk on the phone, but, you know, we were in the offices here, you know, shaving lead and cutting plastic and messing with these baits, and then go fish them. And in a day, you had results and feedback coming back. So,
Yeah. I mean, from the very first few prototypes I got, I mean, they were coming, like, I remember a couple of them. I still have them at the house. I'm going to keep them, you know, the prototypes.
Right.
The first day I brought them out, I think I had like a 6.5 or 7 pounder on one of them. My buddy was like, dude, what is that bait that you're throwing? And I was like, oh, it's just this new little minnow we're designing over at Duckett. He's like, well, let me see it. And, like, I showed it to him. He's like, huh. He's like, that's pretty cool. He's like, why don't they just make that the final design? He's like, you're catching them really good on it. It's like, no, we need to tweak a few more things to make it right.
Right.
You know, and so that's, you know, I've really enjoyed being a part of that. And I know that not just myself, but the whole team here cares to create a good product. And I think we've accomplished that. I mean, I think it's a great product. I really have enjoyed, you know, not just the designing of the bait, but the designing of the packaging. I think the packaging looks clean. You know, I love the wall hanger title that we put on there.
I wish I could take credit myself for that name. It's such a great name that fits you perfectly, and ultimately that's the end game from a lot of customers, is to catch that big fish of a lifetime, the wall hanger kind of thing.
Right?
The wall
it's
hanger.
a big smallmouth or big largemouth. I mean, I mean, that's super cool. I mean, obviously, I mean, that's what a lot of people go out there to do, is to catch the biggest bass they can. You know, and so this guy here is part of the wall hanger series.
That's it. And it's also part of our forward-thinking line of products.
Yep.
And for me, that was important. You know, there's two big key elements that, as this evolved and we really worked on it, the design, a bait that took inspiration from other things, and that we really refined and felt like we've taken it to the next step and gotten even better. But two things to me was really encouraging as we grew this, is that it was becoming part of this forward-thinking system. It wasn't a one-and-done type of idea. You know, we launched the Reveal, which was the hard jerkbait, designed to sink quickly, and that was the first one in this. And then that led us to collaborate with you on taking this soft bait and minnow and jig head style system to the next thing. The other piece of it that I really like is that it's become a jig and minnow system. And I think that really sets our baits apart, because it allows anglers to choose the jig head that they may love and add our minnow to it, or a minnow that they love and add our jig head to it. But we've proven to ourselves that when you put them together, they're even better. You know, they're more effective when they work as a system. And I think that's what makes all the difference, because really no one else in the industry is doing that right now. Is you've got some great soft plastic companies making a bait, and you've got, you know, hook companies or terminal companies making a jig head, but no one's kind of put those two pieces together so they work in unison.
No, we're the only one right now that's got that going. You know, and like you said, I mean, it wasn't like this was an afterthought, or the minnow was an afterthought. You know, they were both designed hand in hand, you know, with meticulous precision going through. And like you said, you know, I was sitting at your desk, I remember, and I was like, well, let's do this with the bait keeper, or let's do this, you know. And so we were definitely thinking about all the, you know, little details, not just on the head, but on the bait, at the same time, kind of working on them at the, you know, along the whole process. So ultimately you get a good system. You know, we didn't just design the Minnow and go, hey, let's do a jig head too.
Right.
It was
right.
like, let's do this, and we worked on that throughout the whole process to get to where we are now. Obviously, we had to package them. I mean, we could have packaged them pre-rigged, but we wanted to give the buyer the option to either, you know, run just the Minnow if they wanted to, or just the jig head, but obviously market it as, like you had said, a system.
Yeah.
You know, because maybe there are guys out there that, you know, maybe they just want to try the jig head or just try the Minnow, or maybe they, you know, it gives you the option, but ultimately we design them both at the same time, side by side, to get to where we are at right now with the sway system.
Well, and we know that every angler, you know, you're no exception, I'm no exception. If you get something pre-rigged, the first thing you say is like, wow, that's great, except I would have, whatever, insert, you know, the next sentence. So while it is a system, now you can vary the weight, you know, you can trim the Minnow a little bit if you want to do something a little bit different with it. It really, you know, works pretty amazing together, because through this process, not only have I learned, you know, a lot about this, but I've learned much more about forward-facing sonar. You know, it put us on the boat focusing on just doing that, watching the fish react, and when you really commit to that, then you really start to see, you know, wow, that works or that doesn't. Water clarity, temperature, depth, all those things make a difference, and so it takes a lot to find something that works. Not just at Lake Guntersville, right? But it's going to work in different parts of the country under different conditions, in a river system, in a clear lake, in a rocky lake, in a grass lake like we have here. So I think the versatility is exciting, and keeping it as separate pieces allows you to mix and match weights or colors or whatever it might be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we did a great job with the system. Like you said, you know, we've got different weights all the way from lighter, you know, 1/8 ounce down to, or up to 3/8 ounce.
Right.
Which, you know, here on Guntersville, you may want to try to get away with your lighter weights, you know, be a little more, you know, finessey, more natural.
Sure.
But then our 3/8, you know, you can put it on the same Minnow and go fish Smith Lake for spotted bass, you know, and go fish deep water, go fish 20, 30, 40 feet deep and get those spotted bass out of that deep water. No, super exciting. I mean, it's really cool. I mean, the whole system, the whole deal is really, really cool. I mean, our next part of our deal here, it says, what's next in the forward-facing sonar game? I mean, this guy here has been, you know, as we talked about with the Minnow and the head, this actually, we've been working on this. We've had this in the works for even longer.
It has been, you know, we jokingly, these things take the lead and then the other one catches up and it gets a little farther ahead, and it's a little bit of a back and forth kind of game, and that's part of good R&D.
It is.
You know, you can't just say, just get that to market. I'm sure some companies do that. You know, just take that, paint it blue, and it's ready to go. And as you're about to talk, that glide bait that you're working on, man, we have just poked and prodded and changed and tweaked and worked on that thing for a while. And we thought for sure we'd be launching it now, but it's coming. It's not far away. Yeah,
it is. And honestly, it's not a bad thing that we've kind of gotten to where we are. You know, everything kind of happens for a reason. I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah,
and the timing on things, I mean, obviously we wanted to get this out sooner, but I think this took, you know, a lot more of our energy and time, and the timing on this is perfect. And I think the timing on this guy's going to be really good too. The glide bait's kind of gotten a little bit more forgotten about on Guntersville, and I think this is going to be an awesome tool. This is something that on forward-facing sonar, maybe not in the every fish format that I'm fishing now, but in a 5-fish format, this is a really, really good tool. Not just this particular one, but just glide baits as a whole are a great tool on forward-facing sonar. This bait here, we wanted to be able to design something that was going to be, you know, pretty affordable, because swim baits can get outrageously expensive really quick. So we wanted it to be fairly affordable. And the key with this bait, more than price point, was we wanted it to have the right action. You know, when I first started talking to Sean, I was like, okay, here's the problem. We've got a lot of, there's baits on the market that do, a slow kind of sondering, kind of gliding action. But when I try to impart more action to it, either my rod tip or my reel, it wants to roll over. And once you get into higher price points, more custom stuff, you get a little bit more refined action. But I was like, I don't want to, I want a bait that I can, go buy on the shelf for $40 and it's going to do exactly what I want it to do.
Right.
And so with this bait, it took some time, it took some energy getting that action right. But we've got a bait, I think we're pretty close as far as the action goes to where we've got a bait that's cutting, chopping, so to speak.
Right.
And it's really responsive. You can get that bait to dart back and forth, and it's a really good tool on forward-facing sonar. Slow sinking bait, so you can get it down to those fish in deeper water, get them to come up for it. The bigger the bait, you've got more drawing power. So this thing has a bunch of draw power. It's a very, very neat tool. This is kind of what's next, at least in my mind.
It's next. That's what's coming. There's half a dozen things in the cooker, so to speak, right? We never quit playing with baits, working with baits, whether it's tweaking a bait that's already in the line, adding a new color to it, adding a new size, whatever it might be, or just innovating with a brand new bait. It's a never-ending battle. Like, you never quit doing that, especially with lures, because it all happens fast. But there's an aggressive push to make that the next one that comes, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. This is ultimately where we got the name wall hanger.
It is. It's where it started. Yeah.
But we kind of thought that would be a great thing to kind of use as the entire branding of the baits that are going to come underneath my name.
Yeah.
Obviously, Wall, Jacob Wall,
right,
it just fits perfectly. But that guy there, when we get to this where it's going to be available for anyone to purchase, that's definitely going to be able to put one on your wall.
Yeah.
I love throwing a big glide bait like that. I love fishing on forward-facing sonar. It's really taught me a lot. You can learn so quickly on it. You can sit there on a spot and learn what's going on in a fraction of the time. You may never in the past have really been able to understand what was happening. You're just kind of making assumptions. But now with forward-facing sonar, you're looking at stuff and you're going, no, this is exactly what's happening. This is, the fish are doing this.
This is how they react. This is how they respond to when I, speed it up or slow it down, whatever it might be. Yeah.
Not just bait response, but like, hey, they're swimming down to the bottom and they're sitting on this little hard spot, or they're swimming over to that grass line and they're staying over there. You get to really learn those nuances of how the fish, how they act. And with that, we're trying to evolve and create tools that are going to enhance our ability to go catch those fish that we're learning more about. So with that, you've got to focus on bait design that's going to be directed towards catching those fish. And that's what we thought about with the swim minnow. That's what we're thinking about over here. That slower, slow moving glide bait, from what I've seen, gets a lot of fish to follow it, a lot of fish to just go up and look at it. And I always see guys talk about, man, I can't catch fish on a big swim bait. They're just following it. Lots of followers.
A lot of lookers.
A lot of lookers, especially in clear lakes. You get it to the boat and man, I had 3 of them following all the way in. That bait that we're designing, the darting, chopping action, really gets those fish to trigger, almost like a jerk bait. So we're thinking about all these things when we're designing these baits. We're trying to make things that are going to trigger these bass to bite more aggressively with forward-facing sonar. And there's other stuff we're thinking about too. I know I talked to Brad, I talked to you, and I, just like, okay, what do we need to design next? What's the next thing? So it's exciting.
Well, we're always looking. We're always looking for the next idea. So before we break, and we're kind of coming to the end here, you've touched on it a couple times. We're really excited to have you on the team. We're proud of the work we're doing. We're really enthusiastic of your knowledge and your desire to do all these things you're talking about, to make a bait, turn a lethargic fish into an aggressive fish, and tools that make anyone a better angler. But how does it feel to get your name on not just 1 or 2 baits, but now the opportunity to have a series, this creation of the wall hanger family? What does that make you feel? What do you tell your parents? What do you go back home and talk to your friends about when you catch up with people and they get to see a package with your name and your signature on it?
Man, it's really cool. I'd be lying if I said that it wasn't like, I mean, it's like a dream come true. I mean, as a young angler, you look at that stuff and you're like, man, that maybe at some point, but it doesn't ever really feel like it's within reality, and I don't know. I mean, I want to say that it feels like some crazy way. Like I feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm on like this crazy pedestal now. Like I feel like I made it, but like, it just feels so natural. I don't know. It doesn't feel like anything like it just feels right. I went to college at the University of Oregon and I got a degree in product design. So I've always, and I've worked, designing baits in my, out of our little house that we live in, carving swim baits, making stuff, right. Guys, if they followed me for a while, they've seen that I've carved a lot of wooden swim baits, a lot of different baits, worked with my hands. So like, as far as the designing of a bait goes and like having a bait in a package with my name on it, it's like that anybody can go purchase. I want to say that it feels some crazy way, but it just feels right. Like it feels like I'm just like, you know what? This feels like how it's like I've always felt like I have the mind to design this kind of stuff and work on this kind of stuff. I'm just really proud to work with a company that also sees that and that can help me get to the point of doing this, because I can't do it on my own. I've got so much other focus, between tournaments and, all the other things that go involved, that are involved with fishing professionally. It's such a, it takes so much of my energy and so much of my focus. And like, obviously I got to stay in the water and hone my craft.
Sure. Right.
So
right.
So much of my energy goes into that. I'm just so proud that I'm able to work with Duckett and designing all this stuff, regardless of all the, negativity around the, in the industry getting thrown around. Duckett's a great company. The people involved in this company are great people. I feel like I'm listened to here. I feel like everybody respects me here. And it's a great feeling knowing that I have a team that I'm a part of that's willing to get behind me enough to do something like this. I think more than anything, that's what feels so cool, is being able to be a part of that team. And it doesn't just feel like something that I came up with. It feels like I've been a big part of it, designing it, working with it. And man, I'm very happy to be a part of such an awesome group of people that believe in what it is that I've spent so much of my life focusing on.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate that. And it really shows. That's the one thing that we noticed when we first started working with you is, you were really passionate about it. You brought great ideas to the table, whether it was in the design or even, we've talked about it when we were creating the video and trying to explain the baits.
Yep.
We're sitting around brainstorming, the night before eating pizza, and you brought great ideas to the table. It's like, well, what if we shot it like this, or what if we did that? Yep. How would this color be affected? How can we present this bait the right way? I've been lucky enough to work on a number of products with different pros over the years. And the best products, the ones that really come to life and the ones that really sell, are the ones that the anglers really put their heart and soul into.
Sure.
Because your knowledge base is so much greater because you're on the water 200 days a year.
Yeah.
And for all those things you were just talking about and how you learn with forward-facing sonar and you see what the fish do, and you've now taken that knowledge and helped us apply that to a product that makes not just you successful, but other people successful too. So welcome to the team, man. We're glad to have you. We're excited about the wall hanger family, and more great things to come. The glide bait's only one of many that we're working on. So we can't wait to bring all that into the market and have everybody catch more fish because of it.
I'm excited. Yeah, I mean, it's a tool that anybody's going to be able to go get, and I think the industry is going in a cool direction with forward-facing sonar. Recently at ICAST, Lowrance just released $1,000. You can get a unit.
What a great idea!
And forward-facing sonar for $1,000.
Yeah.
So this is starting to become maybe a little bit more doable for just your average guy that's got just a aluminum bass tracker or something.
You don't have to be fancy. No extra black box needed with that unit. Just two pieces.
Yep.
And you can bolt it on to the transom of the boat. You can put it onto the thing. I looked at that too. I went by their booth at ICAST and I was like, man, that good for you guys.
Yep.
I thought that was a great addition to the program.
I think so too. I really agree, and I think that might be the direction that more of the electronics companies are leaning is making this more readily available to everyone.
Sure.
And so this is a tool that everyone's going to be able to go get and use to catch more bass.
Yep. Well, Jacob, thanks for joining us. It's been a great episode. It's been fun. I had a great time listening in on the part of the episode I wasn't a part of, and we just appreciate all your hard work. So we're excited to have you on the team, and just keep catching them and doing great. And then I think we're just going to wrap it up. Any last thoughts or anything?
No,
right.
Just enjoyed it.
All right. Appreciate you coming. Tune in next time. We'll be back, and more to come. If you got any questions or anything, of course, always reach out. Come see us at duckettfishing.com. There's an area there where you can leave feedback or you can leave comments on this video. We're always looking for great ideas of what to cover next. So we'll tune in, and we'll catch you out on the water.